Let's address the most important question of the 2025 Texans season. What is a Nick Caley offense, and what traits would you like him to have from his former stops, as well as who could his favorite guys be? We got a lot to address. Such little time, 3 weeks away from camp, live in the locker room.
It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too. Landlocked. Got the game in the headlock. Localize every time. Can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not too. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days. Opinions to give. We got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up. We number one. You don't need to try your luck.
It's the number one question for the Texans in 2025. What the heck is a Nick Caley offense going to look like? We really don't know. He hasn't told us. He said all the right things. He said it's going to be a hybrid. Obviously, you know where he came from. We'll get into those traits in a second, but it's really going to decide the fate of the Texans in a number of ways. Obviously, the better personnel, you're in a better spot. But the good offensive coordinators, including a couple guys that we're going to talk to that Nick Caley has ties to, they've been able to adjust whenever life has handed them lemons. And that's something that you hope Nick Caley will do. It is the locker room, number one source for Texans digital content. Shout out to BobTack for sponsoring this video. We'll talk about them a little bit later on, as well as every question that we have when it comes to Nick Caley and what the heck an offense is. So here's what we know about Nick Caley. He comes from New England, and he spent the last 2 years with the Rams. And for the last couple of years, he's been one of the more popular, prominent names that's been brought up when OC gigs have been open. And this year, the Texans, they ended up hiring him after they got rid of Bobby Slowick after just 2 seasons. Now, the question is, how much different is this scheme going to look? Now, you can connect him to the Shanahan/McVay pipeline that Bobby Slowick was connected to. But the more you hear from Texans players, the more you can kind of feel that this is going to be a different system. How different? What does it look like? He said hybrid when I asked him. Your guess is as good as mine. But we've heard a couple players on record talking about it. A couple of guys that are going to be trying to that are going to be trying to perhaps make a roster. And let's start with Dare Ogunbowale. Dare Ogunbowale, guy who's always in the right place. He's in his 9th season. Dare Ogunbowale was asked on the Texans YouTube channel with Vandy and Harris about this offense. And here was what Dare Ogunbowale had to say about what he likes so far.
Kale's he's got us dialed in, man. I love the way he's installed the playbook. I mean, starting there, just a guy like me who prides himself on picking up playbooks quickly. I mean, he's made it very easy for us to learn this offense, and so that's been big for us. But I mean, there's big plays to be had. Obviously, we've always had an explosive offense once 7 got to the team, so we're not worried about that. But just being able to stay on track, and just the way that we've needed to, these last couple of years, I think we'll be able to do that this year.
Dare, when you look at the running back room,
and we'll get into the running back room. I'm not going to sit here and gas up the running back room, but it sounds like they want to be able to sustain. When he says that they're explosive, if you read between the lines and you read between what Dare Ogunbowale is saying there, he's basically saying that talent has been able to produce big plays. We saw it a lot last year. Joe Mixon turning chicken-ish into chicken salad. We've seen Nico Collins do it. We've seen the CJ Stroud save all butts. But something more sustainable, putting players in position. That's something that Nick Caley's going to have to do. The question is, what does it look like when he does it? And is he going to be able to adjust accordingly whenever the situation is called upon? And I talked about this today. There's really 3 things that I want to see from Nick Caley that I think will be pivotal tests, exams, if you will, in year 1. Number 1 is going to be how he handles adversity whenever someone's hurt. How is he going to do it? Is he going to be throwing Robert Woods bubble screens when Nico Collins is out? Hopefully not. And you've heard kind of the passive-aggressive digs from the coaching staff and the GM when they talk about square peg, round hole. They don't want that. How's he going to handle that? How's he going to handle it when he's facing a team for the second time? And that's going to happen at least 3 times, maybe 4 times if you make the playoffs, maybe 5 if you go deeper in the playoffs. But how is he going to handle it when he faces the Jacksonville Jaguars for the second time, the Colts for the second time? How is he going to handle those types of situations? And the other one is, how is he going to handle his limitations on the offensive line? This isn't going to be an elite offensive line. This is not going to be the Matt Schaub, Arian Foster offensive line. So even in the best case scenario, there's going to have to be times where he doesn't put guys on islands. He gets rid of the ball quick with CJ Stroud. How does he handle that? That's really probably the most important thing. And it's really been kind of the biggest problem that the Texans have had is offensive line management. How does he do that? They got a new offensive line coach. They got some new guys. How does he handle that? So that's the 3 things. Number 1, how does he handle it when there's personnel limitations? Number 2, how does he handle matchups the second time around? And number 3 is going to be, how does he handle the offensive line, which is going to have some weaknesses. How will he handle that? Those are the 3 tests that we'll see from Nick Caley. On the super chat, HDAV Traveler, shout out to you, my friend. Appreciate you for rolling through on the night show. You ain't never hate. Swarm. We're very fortunate that we only got 3 weeks left. We're going to get through this, and then it's going to be business as usual. Right now, people just kind of enjoying the summer, but we'll be a few hundred deep sooner rather than later. So the adjustments are obviously, Damon brings up the adjustments in the chat. The adjustments as well. Bobby Slowick said halftime adjustments didn't exist. He probably should have been fired on the spot when he said that. When he said that halftime adjustments do not exist, he probably should have been fired on the spot. That was probably, and there were some bad quotes last year, but of all the quotes that were said last year, not just here, but in the entire NFL, to say that halftime adjustments don't exist was perhaps the worst quote of last season. And he actually said it when I asked him about the lack of production in the second half. And he basically just made it seem like it was some sort of coincidence. So that was really, really bad. I want to do an exercise, though, when it comes to Nick Caley. And I want to go through his past stops and talk about what traits you would like to see him display that his 2 previous employers had displayed. In other words, not the Bill O'Brien, Patriots South. I'm going to try to turn Deshaun Watson into Tom Brady. I'm going to try to turn Brock Osweiler into Tom Brady. But the strengths from the previous stops of Nick Caley, what of those strengths would we like to see? And what do we want to start with, the Rams, or do we want to start with the Patriots? Should we put off the Patriots because it's kind of a sensitive subject around here? And for a long time, the Patriot way was very frowned upon. Cal McNair, we do not consider ourselves Patriot South. Do we want to start with the Pats, or do we want to start with the Rams? We'll start with the Rams. What do the Rams do well? And what would you like to see Nick Caley do? I have a list of 3 things that I would love to see from Nick Caley when it comes to the Rams. And one of them we actually covered very well in depth. We covered it very well in depth leading up to the draft. We asked Nick Caserio about it, and we asked Nick Caley about it. And then we saw in the draft and in the offseason that they were open to it. And by the way, Sean McVay has had a top 10 scoring offense in 5 of his 8 seasons with 2 different quarterbacks. 5 of his 8 seasons, he's had a top 10 scoring offense, which is beyond impressive. But the first thing that we saw that we were all over is using multiple slot receivers. We saw it in New England when Nick Caley first got there, not because of him, but he witnessed it. It's not necessarily what you did. It's what you witnessed. Like if you witnessed this being done and you witnessed it in multiple places, there's a chance that you're going to be open to trying it whenever you get the opportunity to oversee an offense. But in New England, we've gone through this. When he first got there, it started out, it was Wes Welker and it was Julian Edelman. And right when it seemed like that was clicking, they ended up going to the 2 tight end offense. They kind of adjusted. But then later on, they went back to the multiple slot guys. And you saw Danny Amendola and Julian Edelman as 2 of the top receivers on a really good football team. Then he goes to the Rams. Cooper Kupp, one of the best receivers in the league, having trouble staying healthy. They get Puka in the draft, and Puka puts on an all-time historic display for a rookie wide receiver. And when those 2 guys were on the field, wasn't as often as they would have liked, but when those 2 guys were on the field, the Rams were at the tippity top of offensive efficiency in any measurable, advanced or not advanced, that you want to look at. When those 2 guys were on the field together, Puka and Cooper Kupp, the stats were through the roof, all of them, top 5 in every category and top 3 in most. We've gone through that. Now, what did the Texans do when we said this? This isn't a situation where you say, well, they had what they had in New England and they had what they had with the Rams, so maybe he can get something out of John Mechie. John Mechie's not going to produce at that level. We know that. Maybe he can get something out of Xavier Hutchinson. No, first of all, it wasn't his offense. Second of all, they're not going to do that. So what did they do when Nick Caley got here? They brought in Christian Kirk.
Captain Kirk, can you save me? Captain Kirk, I want to have your baby.
They drafted Jalen Knoll, kind of a luxury pick. And they've been working guys in and out of the slot just in the small sample that we were able to observe in the offseason. So the Rams' strength of using multiple slot receivers and what they did in New England at the highest level, it seems like something the Texans are going to be open to. And you're seeing Kirk lining up all over the place. I asked Caserio about this, and Caserio, he said we line up guys in different spots, Aaron Hernandez, all that. But you have a pretty decent idea, and I think from what we've seen, that the slot is going to be a big part of this offense. And based on what they've invested and what they've done, I think it's safe to say that they're going to use multiple slot guys. This was what Nick Caserio said, and keep in mind, this was before the draft. So this was before the draft. So we've kind of been talking about this for a while here, the slot thing, and then they put it to practice. But this was Nick Caserio talking about it when I asked him about his background and Caley's background using multiple slot guys. This was what Nick Caserio said to me when I asked it.
You and Nick Caley, y'all have experience with guys with similar skill sets that play the same position, having success at the same time, Amendola and Edelman, and then Puka and Kupp. You brought in Kirk, who works a lot in the slot. Is it safe to say that someone who primarily worked in the slot in college, like you're not going to shy away from him just because he did majority of his work in the slot like Christian?
Yeah, good question, Landry. I would say, honestly, when you look at kind of formationing and some of the things that you're able to do from an alignment standpoint, I mean, guys essentially line up all over the place. So even if they're quote unquote inside the formation players, I mean, everybody's an inside the formation player. When you reduce a split, when you have tight receivers tight to formation, all right, line up players outside the formation. I would say going back to Kirk, at A&M, like he played inside the formation. But I would say when you look at his career, I mean, he's pretty much played all over the formation. I mean, let's go back to Arizona. I mean, this guy played all over the place. So you need players that maybe have some degree of flexibility. So if a guy can play inside the formation, outside the formation, all right, not everybody can do that, but some can. You can do some things formationally to kind of help the players. There's some players that are better served on the perimeter. Try to keep him on a perimeter. If he's an inside-only player, Okay, well, then he's an inside only player. Like Amendola, I would say, was an inside only player. I'd say Edelman wasn't an inside only player. Like Edelman was able to be a multi-purpose player, plenty of snaps to him on a perimeter. So it goes back to the same thing. What does a player do well? How do you deploy him? What can you do formationally to help him? What can you do to give him free access? What can you do to help him against the matchup one-on-one, whatever it is? So, I mean, we'll look at everything. But again, you need three or four receivers that are going to be able to do multiple things, unless they do something really, really well. You want to just put them over there and say, okay, like leave him on his own, and then we can handle the rest of the formation with these other guys over here. So, I mean, Gronkowski was a quote-unquote tight end. But, I mean, there's plenty of times that he was singled on the perimeter formation. I mean, Rob's going to the Hall of Fame, so we're talking about one of the best tight ends ever. But, you know, so a lot of it is you can kind of manipulate the defense however you need to based on the personnel that you have.
Yeah. And I think it's well said. And I think it's good that, you know, we had the foresight to ask that and get that answer from him. I do find that very interesting what he had to say about the multiple slots. And then we saw them put it to practice. So they're open to it. And I think with how the personnel is, and this would be the square peg round hole type of BS that we hated the last time that we had a form of what we thought was the New England offense. You don't want to try to turn Dalton Schultz or Cade Stover into Rob Gronkowski. They're not that. So you want to adjust to your personnel. And that's really what the slot thing is. So the one thing on the wish list when we're looking at the traits from the Rams when it comes to Nick Caley, using multiple slots. We want that. We need that. We got to have that. And I anticipate them moving a lot of guys around when it comes to that. But that's the number one thing on the wish list. Multiple slots, and it's something we've been talking about since Nick Caley was brought in. Christian Kirk looks good. Jalen Noel, when he was out there, looks good. Higgins, they think, can play in the slot a little bit. Nico, they'll probably put him in the slot a little bit. I think that is the one thing of all these things. I think it's the thing that I feel safest in saying that Nick Caley will have that trait. It's the ability of using multiple slots, and I'm attributing it to the Rams, but you could talk about New England. New England's probably done it at the highest level as well. So I'm just recency bias. We're giving that to the Rams. Next one would be, and this isn't something that I think we're going to see early, but this is another Ram strength, and it's evolution and being able to adjust in a number of ways. There was a time where they were an ultimate zone running scheme. They were running the zone scheme at the highest level. The Kyle Shanahan type of zone scheme, the Washington when McVay was there type of zone scheme. They're running that a lot. And now they're actually kind of running a little bit more gap now. And if you want to take it even a step further, the way the offense looked with Jared Goff, it looks completely different with Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford's obviously probably a quarterback that you trust a little bit more than Jared Goff, but they're able to adjust. It's the square peg round hole thing that we've heard D'Amico and Nick Caserio say. So they've been able to adjust and they've been able to evolve based on their personnel. And this also goes back to one of the three things that we'll be watching for to kind of assess and grade how Nick Caley does in year one. So the Rams' strength, and this is not, everyone says they want to do this, but the Rams have done it at a good level. I go back to when they had C.J. Anderson. Remember their playoff run where they had C.J. Anderson? I think it was 19. Was it 2019 when the Ravens, because I remember I was in Las Vegas, the Ravens upset the Titans upset the Ravens. The Rams beat the Cowboys, and then the Chiefs ended up coming back from 24-0. So I think C.J. Anderson was 2019. Y'all can hold me accountable on that if that information is not correct, but I think my photographic memory is playing out there. But Ram strength, evolution, adjusting. You're going to have C.J. Stroud for the entire duration of your time as OC. Nick Caley will. But adjust. Don't try to make a running back, like if you have to adjust your running scheme with a running back, then go ahead and adjust that. So that would be strength number 2. Next one that I would like to see Nick Caley take from the Rams, and this is kind of connected to what I just said, but make and do with what you got. Make and do with what you got. If you have just Puka, let Puka go crazy. If you have just Cup, let him go crazy. If you have both, let them both go crazy. And find creative ways to do different things. There was a chance that the Rams, if it wasn't snowing when they played the Eagles, they probably had the best chance of beating the Eagles this year. It just the weather didn't really do them any favors. And they ended up the Eagles ended up pulling away towards the end. But the Rams' ability to make do with what they got, that's something else you got to do. Make do. The Life Lemons, the Sugarfoot, whipped cream ranch. If you don't know about that, don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. But make do. So those are the Rams' strength. Number 1, multiple slots. I feel confident they're going to be able to do that. Number 2, evolution, adjusting, zone to gap, etc. And number 3, make do. And that's something every OC should really be able to do. But it's something that Sean McVay is really, 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 really good at. Just adjusting and making do with what he's got. Let's hear from another Texans player on this offense. And this is a guy who's going to be trying to make this team. And I want to get into Nick Caley and who his guys could be, because every offensive coordinator has guys. DeMeco Ryans has guys on defense. Who could Nick Caley's guys be? Could Xavier Hutchinson be one of them? I wouldn't bet on it. But let's hear what Xavier Hutchinson has to say about this offense, courtesy of the Texans YouTube.
I just think it's going to be something different that people aren't used to us seeing from us. We're still going to carry our core principles. We're going to be tough. We're going to be explosive. But I think we're gonna have a lot more players in the right places to be able to make the plays.
Jeez.
And I think as a whole, we're just going to be a lot more confident. We're going to be riding that confidence train to the end of it.
Yeah.
But it's just going to be a offense that has multiple uses, multiple purposes.
All right. Listen to this. I did not anticipate this. Quite frankly, I was anticipating something somewhat generic. But he basically says it's going to be something we're not used to. He basically says players are going to be in the right position and there's going to be confidence. This is a pretty big quote from Xavier Hutchinson.
We're going to be riding that confidence train to the end of it.
Yeah. I like it.
But be able to make the play principles for sure. I just think it's going to be something different that people aren't used to us seeing from us. We're still going to carry our core principles. We're going to be tough. We're going to be explosive. But I think we're going to have a lot more players in the right places to be able to make the plays. And I think as a whole, we're just going to be a lot more confident. We're going to be riding that confidence train to the end of it.
Yeah. I like it.
But it's just going to be a offense that has multiple uses, multiple purposes. Anybody can get the ball in any scenario and be used.
Okay, I gotta ask this because in fact it happened yesterday as well. So I'm doom scrolling on Instagram. It obviously follows the algorithm, and all of a sudden I see this video pop up, and it's 2 guys. I'm like, hey, that's X. What? And they're doing this thing, and I wanted to do this on radio with you, where they'll rotate like a helmet, and the helmet will pop up, and you got to fill in quarterback, running back, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a defense.
All right. I don't know where my man JH was going with that, but he just said we're going to see something we're not used to, and then basically said we're going to know what the hell we're doing, and there's going to be some confidence. I mean, that's kind of a shot fired, of many shots fired in the direction of who.
Damn it, Bobby
Slowick. It's wild. 320 says, I hope that we keep Hutch. I think right now, if I had to bet, I would say he's WR6. But the question that I have, and we'll get to the New England traits in a sec, But the question I do have with Xavier Hutchinson is he going to be a Nick Caley guy? And who will Nick Caley guys be? We know they all have them. Like D'Amico has his guys. His guy is Jimmy Ward, Azeez Al-Shire, Jalen Petrie. Those are like D'Amico's guys. Like the guys that he really, really likes. Who are Nick Caley's guys going to be? Now, the natural approach when you're trying to figure out who these guys will be, well, did he bring them in? Because he has no loyalty to John Mechie. He has no loyalty to anyone that was on this roster. But it goes without saying that the dogs are going to be his guys. Your top-notch players are going to be his guys. So CJ, Nico, Mixon. Naturally, as a head coach, you love those guys. So those are going to be his guys. But then you got to look at the guys that he actually brought in. I think Andrews is someone who sticks out right now at center. Didn't even really know who the hell he was when they brought him in. And all of a sudden, he's center one. He's one of his guys. Trent Brown on the offensive line, kind of a leader type. We haven't even seen him on the field. He's one of those guys. Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk was a guy that they traded for. They didn't even want to risk Christian Kirk when he was going to get released hitting the market. It's the same thing that they did with Joe Mixon last year, and we saw what Joe Mixon did. Christian Kirk is one of his guys. And if you watch CJ Stroud and you watch what's going on, Christian Kirk's getting a lot of opportunity. Watch that flag route out of the slot with Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk is one of his guys. The Ohio connection to the Iowa State guys. I would say obviously Higgins is one of his guys. I don't want to say Higgins was a guy that you drafted for need, but he was the top wide receiver when you drafted him. I would say Jalen Knowles high up there too, as far as being one of his guys. You can maybe make a case that Woody Marks is one of the guys. They traded up for Woody Marks, the running back out of USC. Woody Marks, one of the best receiving running backs in college football the last few years. Woody Marks might be one of his guys. We don't know what the hell he can do, but we know that they traded up for him, and we know that Nick Caley was here when he brought him in. Other guys could develop as his guys, but let's keep an eye on that. Braxton Berrios is kind of an interesting one too, and I know we're getting deep in the sticks when it comes to the depth chart and everything, but Braxton Berrios is a guy who, granted, I don't know, like if they would have had Noel already, I don't know that they bring in Braxton Berrios, but again, you go back to the slot receiver, and I don't want to hit the RC, but we've talked about some slot receivers. Braxton Berrios kind of has that lunch pail, Amendola, Edelman, Welker, Cooper Kupp type of vibe to him. Maybe he likes Braxton Berrios. Maybe Braxton Berrios is wide receiver 6. Maybe this like slot thing is going insane to where you have 3 guys that are looked at as kind of slot guys with Kirk, Knoll, and Berrios. Maybe Berrios is one of his dudes. I don't know. All these guys are going to have opportunity to become his dudes. But when you're an offensive coordinator and you're Nick Caley and you're willing to pay Christian Kirk, trade for Christian Kirk, and then bring him into the mix, obviously he kind of has, there's a reason why they did that. I think it's obvious that with all the slot guys that they've brought in, they're not big on John Mechie. And I would be shocked if John Mechie was on this team, to be honest with you. But who are the Caley guys be? I think we got to look at the wide receivers and then the guys that he knows from the New England days: Trent Brown, Andrews, maybe Ursery too. Other than that, your guess is as good as mine, but I would focus on the receivers when it comes to who his guys will be. It is the Locker Room #1 source for Texans digital content. Shout out to the late night crew in the offseason. It is funny. Football fans, they stay up a lot later in season. In season, we're up till probably 11:30, 12. I'm a night owl no matter what. I'm going to bed later than most, even when I have to get up early. But that's just kind of how I roll. But during football season, I mean, the average bedtime I would say is probably like 10:45, 11, especially given the fact that football is on all the time. But the Nick Caley guys, look at the receivers and look at the offensive line he has ties to. We'll get to the Patriot strengths that I would like to see from Nick Caley. How about Xavier Hutchinson calling him out? But first, a sponsor of the show and a sponsor of this video who's going to roll with us up to all the way up to West Virginia, BobTack. A lot of people, you got to be safe when you're at work. Safety equipment is important. The problem with safety is what's happened is you see a lot of companies now, the large companies, the customer service is terrible. They don't really care, and the prices are going up. That's not the case at BobTack. They've been locally owned and operated since 2016. You got Bobby, who has 45 plus years of experience in the industry. They're located in Pasadena. They got safety supplies, PPE, spill control products, trucking, maritime supply, gloves, FR coveralls. They got everything from popsicles to protective clothing, everything that you need when it comes to being safe. If you work in the chemical plant, trucking, on the maritime, all that stuff, they got you. They got the supplies. They got the right price. If you don't like the price, you can call them 24/7. They're open. You're not going to talk to some AI machine. It's locally owned and operated right here in Houston. They're going to deliver right to you. The local businesses, it's important, especially when it comes to safety. There's a lot of people that you're just kind of winging it when it comes to safety, but that's not going to happen. So if you work in the chemical plant industry, the trucking, maritime industry, or any local businesses that need safety supplies, give these guys a call. They got the great prices. Bobby and Reed will take care of you. You could actually text that number right now. Go ahead and text it. 409-744-8225 if you want to get your safety supplies going. Or you can go to BobTack.com. Locally owned and operated, free on-site delivery, and the place to go. So shout out to them. Let's talk about the Patriot stuff. And Patriot stuff is always a sensitive subject around here because we've had some jackasses that work with the Patriots before that have worked here. The POS, person of service, Jack Easterby's the number one. Y'all know I have no love for Jack. Bill O'Brien, obviously. You brought in Brian Hoyer. You brought in Ryan Mallett, Nick Caserio. It's kind of a sensitive subject when it comes to the Texans and the Patriots because they tried to copy them. It didn't work out, and it was just a big buzzkill of mediocrity that just it didn't pay off. Now, there are some things, though, that I would love to see Nick Caley take from New England and bring here to Houston with this offense. And we've already laid out the Rams' strengths, but I have three with the Patriots as well. And it starts with the most important relationship in this organization that's really going to decide how far the Texans go. And that's the relationship with the quarterback. I know Tom Brady's Tom Brady. Tom Brady can win with anyone, but his relationship with Josh McDaniels is very well documented. And both of them have been on record talking about how they would call each other. They could call each other anytime, and anytime they'd answer the phone. CJ Stroud's kind of joked about not answering the call when Nick Caley calls because he's too wired up. I hope he's kidding about that. But the relationship with the QB, and you can also take it to Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford, and McVay willing to trust Stafford right off the rip. But the relationship with the QB is going to be extremely important. If that means CJ Stroud gets more freedom at the line of scrimmage, which he says he wants, which he says he's going to have, so be it. If that means you kind of have to reel it in, like McVay did with Goff, then so be it. But the relationship with the QB, there's really not a better example in recent NFL history than the relationship with Josh McDaniels and Tom Brady. So I would say that would be something that you would love to see arrive from New England. The next one, and I don't know if this is realistic in the short term. I feel confident about the slots, the multiple slots. multiple backs contributing. I always point to the AFC Championship game where Burkhead had a couple touchdowns. Sony Michel had 100 yards. James White caught some passes out of the backfield. They always had multiple backs contributing. You see the Rams kind of being able to run the rock no matter who they got. That would be something that I would love to see from New England. Now, this is probably the lowest on the confidence of these traits, but it would be nice if they could get this done. They did bring in Nick Chubb. They did trade up for Woody Marks. We'll see what that looks like. Joe Mixon apparently been kind of banged up this offseason. Good season last year. How does he bounce back? That's another thing to keep an eye on. Danny Woodhead, another dynamite drop right there. He did his thing. I remember when they disguised him and he went and worked at a Dick's Sporting Goods and no one recognized him. But yeah, multiple backs contributing would be the next thing. And then the next one is week-to-week game planning, and not the chicken crap that BOB used to do where you kind of overthought it. You bailed on your identity. And a lot of times it just felt like you were overthinking it. But in New England, there were times where you would see them run the ball 50 times one week and throw the ball 50 times the next. Week-to-week game planning. All of them say, and Nick Caley has already said, we're going to be week-to-week. This is going to be the Texans offense, yada, yada, yada. Well, we need to see the week-to-week game planning, and we need to see it effectively. So this is the final wish list that I have for the Texans. And there's another question that I think we need to get to that's motivated by the picture of Nick Caley right there, a younger Nick Caley with a Nick Caserio. That's Nick times 2, NC times 2. Nick. But the Rams things, we want to see multiple slot receivers, very confident that is going to be the case, or at least they're going to try to do it. We want to see evolution in a Justin. No G, a Justin. We want to see them make do with what they got. And then Pat's things, we want to see the relationship with the quarterback, the multiple backs, and the ability to week-to-week game plan, which you can kind of attribute to both of these guys. You can also attribute kind of the multiple slots. But we want those are the things that you want from Nick Caley when it comes to that. And yes, you want second half game planning to exist. Not the Bobby Slowick. It doesn't matter. And there's a lot of people calling for adjustments after a halftime. Yes, Bobby Slowick said those didn't exist. One of the worst quotes of last year. Just completely embarrassing by him. But that's something that you want to see from both ends. Now, there's another question that I have that I'm going to ask when training camp begins. On the 23rd, this question will be asked. A lot of times I kind of telegraph my questions. We'll see how they answer them. But this will be asked before the Texans take the field. Nick Caserio is going to go up to the podium. He's going to be wired up. Nick Caserio gets pumped up for training camp. He likes it. He still enjoys it. He's a very big. He is a ball loving GM. Pause, but football loving GM. But I'm going to ask him, because I think it goes without saying that the answer is probably yes. Now, how he answers it and what he says, it could be a lot of word salad. It could be that prototypical Nick Caserio says a lot but doesn't say much type of thing. But the question I have for Nick Caserio is, how involved is Nick going to be when it comes to this offense? And I thought it was kind of overhyped that he wore the headset in the press box. And I think we were the ones that dug it up and consumed the information, and everyone else, it just kind of a snowball effect to where it was being asked about. But when he was in New England, Nick Caserio was on the headset. Now, he was on the headset, I guess, with David Culley, some thought, and it was kind of a sensitive subject. Some people didn't think that was the right thing, but Tom Brady and Josh McDaniels trusted Nick Caserio to be on the headset in game day. And it was basically, it wasn't like he was telling you what plays to run. There's actually like some NFL Network footage on it, and he's he's basically saying, they're coming out with 4 backers. They've been doing this on third down. It's like a decent resource. It's something that Tom Brady wanted. I don't know if it's something that CJ Stroud wanted, but it was something that we wondered. And we also wondered if when Nick Caserio was general manager, are they going to be married to this New England scheme? And the one thing that I thought was a prime display and an elite display of the relationship and the dynamic between DeMeco and Nick was the fact that it was clearly DeMeco Ryans who decided what type of offense he wanted to run and who he wanted to hire. Didn't work great. Looked good through 1 year with Bobby Slowick, but it didn't look great after that. But Caserio was even kind of on record
Damn it, Bobby.
of saying, this is an offense that's I'm not familiar with. I'm kind of learning. I'm taking it all in. However, I can be a resource. I'll be a resource. And he was basically in a long-winded word salad way. Nick was basically saying that I'm taking a step back and this is DeMeco's offense. Well, it didn't work. As a matter of fact, it was as pathetic of an offense as we'd seen with O'Brien. Like, it was basically a bad version of a bad Bill O'Brien offense. The only difference is a lot of times when Bill O'Brien had the bad offense, he didn't have CJ Stroud. So it was bad. Now you're bringing in Nick Caley. And we don't know what it is. We don't know what it's going to be. He says a hybrid. He is bringing in a lot of guys that ran that offense in New England and that are familiar with that. So you would think at the very least it's a combination of the two schemes maybe, but there is a little bit of that New England flavor. And the question is Nick Caserio more involved? He's definitely more comfortable. He's definitely probably more educated to where if they are sitting around talking about a game plan or what type of players they want, he's definitely more educated to have an opinion. How involved is he going to be is another question. Because it's one thing for Bobby Slowick, Pep Hamilton, Tim Kelly to come to the Texans and Nick Caserio be in the headset. It might be weird for some of them. But that's all Nick Caley knew when Caserio was there. And it worked pretty effing good. He got a couple expensive-ass pieces of jewelry as a result of that thing. Now, would CJ Stroud want it? I don't think so. But again, it's not like he's going to be overriding play calls or anything like that. And even if it's not the headset, you got to think Nick Caserio is going to be involved in the offense. Now, some people will immediately say, well, that's a bad thing. I don't think it's a terrible thing. If it's a good play caller and it's a good dynamic, it's a good quarterback. But what is it going to look like and how much more involved is he going to be? Because it's completely different. And quite frankly, I think Bobby Slowick could have used a little bit more help when it came to the offense. Like, it was a complete lost cause, and Bobby didn't seem to have a lot of help when it came to that complete dumpster fire that we saw on the offensive side of the rock. So how involved will Caserio be in the offense now? Again, I can promise you that will be the first question I ask when Nick Caserio, and that's going to be let me look at the schedule. It's going to be on the 23rd. So we're 3 weeks away from this going down. Yeah, it's going to be at 8:30. I will ask Nick Caserio, given the fact that you're more familiar with this, will you be more involved in the offense? And we'll see what Nick Caserio says. He might laugh. He might have a little joke about the old headset gate. But I think he will be more involved. So keep an eye on that. And I don't necessarily think it's a terrible thing. But this is the number one question of the offseason. And there's a good point brought up in the chat from Spooky Scoobs. Shout out to Spooky Scoobs. He says, what if Nick Caley has a good year? Are we hesitating crowning him like a good OC like we did Bobby? I mean, I would say probably. I mean, I don't think, I think obviously you're going to, it's a fluid process. And we see guys kind of fall off from year 1 to year 2 in multiple aspects. Some would say CJ did last year. So, yeah, I don't think you're going to crown him after 1 year. I do wonder, though, if there's like some coaching interest when it comes to Nick Caley. Like if the Tennessee Titans struggle, and we know the stanky one, Emmy Adams Stank, likes to take people from Houston. Like, could Nick Caley be on kind of the fast track? He has a couple of things going for him. He got good experience, and he's also from the McVay pipeline. Like guys from the McVay pipeline, they succeed. Liam Cohen is an example. Liam Cohen, he worked for McVay multiple times. He left McVay. He went to Tampa Bay, and he had the good year with Baker Mayfield, and Liam Cohen's in the division coaching with the Jags. So Bobby Slowick, he had the Shanahan connection, but he'd never been a position coach. So he didn't have that going for him after year 1. He did get a couple of interviews, but Nick Caley, he has the Patriots connection, which a lot of teams copy, but he also has the Rams connection, which is pretty cool. That's a pretty good combination to have to work for probably the best offensive mind, one of the top 3 best offensive minds in Sean McVay, and then be a part of one of the best dynasties in NFL history. It's cool. But right now, I mean, if you want to be an NFL head coach, then you gotta pay your dues, or you got to be connected to Sean McVay. And by the way, it's a formula that works. So I damn sure am not complaining about it. Frank Z going Nick. And he also asks, does hybrid equal Shanahan / spread offense? I think hybrid means a combination of New England and a combination of the Rams, if I had to guess, which you could do a lot worse than that. Josh McDaniels is a good offensive coordinator. He's a good guy to learn from. And he's also one of Nick Caley's heroes. Connected to one of his heroes. Nick Caley talked about Josh McDaniels' dad, the legendary high school coach up there in Ohio. I don't know much about his game, but I know he mentioned him, and he mentioned always wanting to be a high school coach growing up. But he's done a good job, Josh McDaniels, specifically with Mac Jones, which led to him getting that Raiders job. So we'll see how Josh McDaniels does with Drake May. I don't think anyone's going to be fooled into hiring him to be a head coach of their football team. But if you can call plays and be an offensive coordinator like Josh McDaniels, more power to you. That's it. That's not a bad thing to be at all. Just not a head coach. Some guys are meant to be coordinators. Other guys are meant to be head coaches. I think Josh McDaniels is kind of that coordinator type of dude. Multiple stops in New England. He's almost like the Billy Martin up there. Jordan Washington says, I think Nick Caley is going to be great for CJ Stroud. I guess. I think there's reason for optimism. I think the unknown creates excitement, but I can't sit here and say that confidently. I think Bobby Slowick was getting bad for CJ Stroud, and there was clearly a lot of frustration. And you saw some of the anonymous quotes with some of the reports. But I can't with 100% confidence say that he's going to be great for CJ Stroud, because we don't know. Again, it goes back to the number one question of the season and number one question of the offseason, and how we started this video off. What the hell is a Nick Caley offense? We've laid out what we want it to be, but what the hell is it? And is CJ Stroud going to be ready to go? Is he going to be able to build on it? Probably use those legs a little bit more would be a good start for CJ. But I can't like pound the table and say that Nick Caley is going to be good for him. I'm a fan. I'm a fan. I think it was the right hire. But don't know. The square peg round hole is the problem, and then we'll see where it goes. I mean, but the players do kind of they do like to indirectly take shots at Bobby Slowick. That Xavier Hutchinson quote was pretty surprising. Going to see things that we're not used to. Guys being in the right position to make plays, and not relying on explosiveness. And I thought that was always the stats are weird in that if you're not watching a team every play, then you can be fooled by him. And there were times where Bobby Slowick would hang his hat on explosives, and the explosive would be, okay, Joe Mixon goes this way, everyone's blocked, and then he turns it around and goes 20 yards. Or Nico Collins catches a bubble screen and he cuts up field. Like, ideally, you would love to see your explosives where Christian Harris lines up in the slot, and then all of a sudden Knoll is in motion, and you see kind of a wheel route, and it's a 20-yard completion to Knoll. Those are the type of explosives that you would like to see. Not players turning chicken-ish into chicken salad. That's really the thing that you want to see. You want to see some created explosives. Sideline Sarah says that CJ definitely looks happier when he talks about Nick. Yeah, but he was very high on Bobby too. I get that he was frustrated about Bobby Slowick last year, and he talked about his spirit being crushed, but he was pretty high on Bobby Slowick for a large majority of the time. He does seem to be excited about what they got going, or at least buying in. Seems almost like reluctantly when he talks about the offensive line, but it's not like he wasn't gloating about Bobby Slowick at one point. The unhappiness kind of happened last year, kind of where the production went down. But in fairness, he was pretty high on Bobby. Traden Allgood says explosive plays where you think of the offensive coordinator after. Yeah, I guess you're saying that a lot of the plays was just talent, the explosive plays, yeah. But they're going to have to grind it out. They're going to have to grind it out. They're going to have to figure it out at all. Millie O says, I don't need flat-foot CJ running for more than 15. He only runs when he needs to, thank goodness. No, he should actually use his legs more. Yeah, I disagree with that. That's been one of his biggest knocks. That's been one of the things that he needs to do, actually. He needs to take the 5-yard gain and get down. And in the biggest games, really, you kind of see CJ do that. You saw him do it against Georgia, and then you saw him do it actually against Kansas City last year. He was actually doing a good job. So yeah, I would disagree with that. He definitely needs to run. Milo says he don't know ball. That's what CJ has said. That's what he's done when it matters most. So yeah, he does need to use his legs more. He needs to take what the defense gives him. It's been one of the biggest knocks on him and one of the biggest inconsistencies. For sure. That's 100% what he should do. He should run more. I'm not sitting here saying you're running zone reads with him, but when stuff breaks down, he's capable of running, get down. 100%. Got to do that. And he does it when it matters most. Maybe there's kind of a coast factor to it, but that's something that's one of the bigger knocks on CJ. He's definitely got to run. The other thing that really comes into play, if Joe Mixon plays 17 games, that's great. He's getting kind of to the age where it's not realistic to expect based on what we saw last year, based on what we heard this offseason. What does it look like if they don't have Joe Mixon? Because last year when they didn't have Joe Mixon, it was a disaster. It was kind of a dumpster fire. Now we did see Dare Gumbawale, and I saw that the Texans radio guy said all he does is make plays. It almost seems like a little bit of a bit at this point. But what does Nick Chubb look like? How do they handle that? The Woody Mark situation. How do they do that? But the Joe Mixon dependency is something else that I think Nick Caley could be in trouble with. Cebu says, I can't think of many times CJ opts not to run when he should, but he throws great on the run. Yeah, I can't think of how many times CJ opts not to run when he should. He does a lot. He does a lot. And it's not as cut and dry and obvious until you actually see when he is willing to take off and run. That's the thing. Like, it's not like blatantly obvious, but when you see him against Kansas City and then you see him against Georgia compared to what he was doing at Ohio State, it's kind of obvious that there's more opportunities, a little bit more athletic. But yeah, he throws good in any situation. Like, he's got one of the better arms in the league and throws one of the prettier balls. So Yeah, he definitely does throw good on the run for sure. And he's never going to be a guy who's going to be a run first guy, but he needs to take what they give him. Try to get, second and mid instead of 2nd and 10. Milo talking about the don't know ball comment was in terms of the CJ Bobby fallout where they were having leaks from the locker room. Okay. Yeah, I didn't understand those leaks. I think it's obviously the offensive line. Let's just be honest. Like, it was clearly either Tunsil, Shaq, or Titus Howard. We saw how they handled the Minnesota game. No accountability, and it was kind of embarrassing. And then you heard the comments about Bobby after. It was clearly offensive line. Maybe even CJ. Who knows? That was kind of unnecessary, but yeah. And we'll see how the whole thing goes with Nick Caley. But what the hell is a Nick Caley offense? Nick. It's exciting. It's intriguing. According to him, it's a hybrid. And hopefully he takes some of these good lessons that he's learned from his previous stops, and he's able to put them to practice, because they got to be better on offense than they were. We know they're going to be really good on defense. And hopefully he's able to do some things. I'm looking forward to it. We're 3 weeks away from getting to at least see it in front of us and see this thing kind of shape out. And before we know it, 2 months away from the start of the season. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like the damn video. That's the reminder. And be sure to always remember, whether Bobby Slowick is frustrating us or Nick Caley is exciting us, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Appreciate y'all.
Try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize, every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too.